Yeah, I saw this. Kyle Kulinski was talking with someone else, I believe, or two other people, and he was saying that he regrets not pushing people to vote for Biden more, or like not voting for Biden himself. Or I forget the exact parlance. Talking with the Vanguard. Oh yeah, we can watch this. I only saw like a 2-second clip. I didn't see the whole thing at all. What's going on?
Earlier, you mentioned something, Gavin, that I thought was really interesting. You were talking about definitely voting for Marianne in the Democratic primary, which obviously I fully agree with. And then you were saying in the general, definitely voting for Cornel West.
Yeah.
So the point that I've made on my show, and kind of the point that I've made over the years, even in 2016 and even in 2020, even though some people like interpret what I've said differently, my point has always been, if you live in a safe state, I think you should vote for, the Green Party candidate or whichever candidate 100% aligns more with your values. But I actually think it's a much more difficult moral conundrum in a swing state. I actually don't think it's a very easy question. Like, I'm definitely going to vote for Cornel West because at the end of the day, look, it's just the ironclad reality that if we don't...
Cornel West initially signing up with the People's Party and then switching immediately to the Green Party represented such a severe degree of unseriousness that it genuinely astonishes me that even people like the Vanguard guys are capable of supporting him. Like, it's so unserious right off the bat. It's so goofy. Aren't they the guys who got mad at you at the Mines versus Drones thing, Lamau? Yes, these are that guys. These are those guys. Yeah. Address the blonde. I like him with blonde hair. Well, this isn't even blonde. It's platinum blonde, but I like it.
Get rid of first past the post voting, and if we don't implement ranked choice voting, all the third party talk, whether it's a libertarian, green, an independent, or anybody, it all comes to like it's literally for nothing. It's all just like a fake virtue signal show. And I actually think that sort of like delegitimizes the idea of a third party and a candidate who's not a Democrat or Republican a lot more, that we all buy into this charade that there might be something serious going on here. Now, this, by the way, is coming from somebody. I voted for Jill Stein in 2012. In 2016, I, of course, voted for Bernie in the primary. And then in the general, I voted for, I think Jill Stein ran again. I think I voted for her again. So I voted for Jill Stein twice. So this is coming from somebody who is literally a Green Party voter. I've probably voted for more Green Party people than Democrats, or it's like roughly even. But having said that, like, so let me give you my whole spiel on Biden, because I'm from New York. I'm still technically registered to vote in New York, but I might be going to Virginia, which is a little bit more of a swing state. It's not as safe as New York. So then all of a sudden this conundrum pops up again. So when it comes to Biden, I got to be honest with you guys, I expected Dickie McGee's acts from him. I expected literally nothing, because we're talking about a guy who voted for the Iraq War. We're talking about a guy who voted for the crime bill and wrote part of the crime bill. We're talking about a guy who supported NAFTA and the Patriot Act. And like his record as a senator is a deeply, deeply conservative Democrat and a corrupt Democrat. So I expected nothing at all. But then when he got into office, like, I was genuinely pleasantly surprised to see he did some student loan debt reduction. He did the $1,400 stimulus checks. He said it was going to be $2,000. That was a lie. But we got $1,400, which was half decent.
There was the other $600 in addition to the whatever.
In the Inflation Reduction Act, they overruled the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court said the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, is not allowed to do environmental protection. And so Biden and the Democrats slipped it into the IRA that we're redefining carbon emissions as a pollutant. So now the EPA can regulate it again, basically saving the entire fight against climate change by that one simple procedural trick, which was super base, one of the most base things I've ever seen any Democrat in the modern era do. He raised the minimum wage for federal employees and federal contractors through executive order, which is about 400,000 workers to $15 an hour. I definitely didn't expect him to do that. I didn't expect him to do project labor agreements, which, 200,000 union workers get higher wages as a result of that. I didn't expect him to onshore 200,000 jobs when Trump had offshored hundreds of thousands of jobs. I didn't expect him to do even the mild gun reform that he did, where we have like some funding for red flag laws and we got rid of the boyfriend loophole. So if you have like a domestic abuser boyfriend, that you could legally take their guns now if they're a threat. I didn't expect, Ketanji Brown Jackson. I think.
Oh, fun note on that, by the way. One of the upcoming Supreme Court cases that they'll be deliberating on will be on whether or not it's a violation of one's Second Amendment rights to have their right to own arms taken away from them because they're a domestic abuser. So we might soon be living in an environment where you can have a boyfriend that beats the shit out of you, and then he can just go buy a gun even after getting a conviction for domestic abuse.
Is a great Supreme Court justice. She was put on the court. We have the NLRB is genuinely pro-labor. We wouldn't have seen this increase in Amazon unionization and Starbucks unionization if it wasn't for that. He pulled out of Afghanistan, which I thought was super based, and then he actually told the media to suck his nut.
I don't think it's about convictions. No, isn't it? The upcoming Supreme Court... Wait, hold on. Let me check so I'm not misremembering. Hold on. Supreme Court case, domestic abuse, firearms, Second Amendment. What's the exact wording here? Supreme Court to decide whether a Second Amendment protects gun owners subject to domestic violence. Oh, okay, sorry. Not convictions, restraining orders. My bad. So, wait. Yeah, that's still really bad.
nuts as he did it when they were like flipping out over it. And he took a hit in the polls as a result of it because they hit him so hard on that, and he went down in the polls. But he pulled out and said, "No, I'm not going to go back in." Now we can talk about all the the negative things, like he's starving Afghanistan right now via sanctions, and he did a drone strike that killed innocents on the way out of Afghanistan. And so I could do the whole spiel. Like, here's the 20 areas where he's wrong. Ripped up the Iran agreement, is not getting back into it. It didn't lift a finger for the public option or the PRO Act. Gave up on $15 minimum wage for the whole country. Bombed Syria. Sent troops to I could give you the pros and the cons, but my point here is $15 corporate minimum wage, billions of dollars for Made in America green jobs, which was part of the IRA, the PACT Act, which gave health care to toxic burn pit victims who are veterans.
It's such a testament to how much more serious Kyle Kulinski is about policy than I am, that when I think of, like, why is Biden good, I think of, like, just a flash through of Dark Brandon memes running through my mind, that he just remembers all these specific things. I wonder if does he have it written in front of him? He might have it written in front of him. I could never remember this many things in a row. Another huge thing for me with Joe Biden was supporting Lula da Silva against potential insurrectionary violence against him from Bolsonaro supporters. That's huge. Because, like, after decades and decades and decades of America propping up fascist dictatorships in Latin America for our benefit, now we do the reverse Uno card, and Biden props up a socialist leader to protect him from a fascist insurrection. It's very good. It's very good. I like that.
Massively reducing the drone war. And he did all this stuff without a supermajority. Obama had a supermajority, and he did like 40% of what Biden was able to do. So I look at that and I go, my purity test in 2020 was like, if I was convinced Joe Biden would just do a couple of the things that I support, just like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 at most, just like if I thought for sure he's going to get me victories on some 3 things I like, then I would suck it up and vote for him. And my point back then was, I don't think he's going to do it. Based on his whole career as a senator, I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's super goddamn conservative. But then now I look at it and I go, number one, I actually probably should have voted for him. I didn't. I actually didn't vote in 2020, but I kind of should have voted for him, number one. Number two, if it comes down to Trump versus Biden or DeSantis versus Biden, and I'm in Virginia, I think I would go cast a vote for Biden because for all the issues he has far surpassed my expectations. But now it complicates it even more because Cornel West is running, and I love Cornel West, and he's way more in alignment with my politics. So if I was in New York, I probably would still vote for Cornel West and not for Biden. So anyway, tell me your thinking and why you're more or less convinced that it's the right thing to do to go Cornel West.
All right, gotcha. A lot to respond there.
Yeah, sorry about that spiel.
No, you're great. That's a lot of good stuff. So first of all, I do live in a safe state. I live in Missouri, which is 100%.
Keep in mind, it's really important to vote for Dems, even if you're in a safe state, because you don't want to beat out the opposition by 1 vote. You need overwhelming victories against them, because that mobilizes the party and it indicates people's like broader rejection of it. You do not want a 51 versus 49% fascism. It's not viable.
Gonna go red. It does every year. At least, during my lifetime. At one point, not so much, but now it is, solidly red state.
Well, wait, that's even worse, because like you can't say, oh man, I can't vote against fascism here because everyone here votes for fascism. Well, that's never going to change if you act that way. Like, Florida was a swing state not that long ago, and now it's a red state, but it's never going to be anything other than a red state if people take the attitude of like, oh, well, I can vote for totally ineffective third-party candidates now because I have the benefit of living in a state where it doesn't matter and nothing's going to change. That's like defeatism. It's dumb.
Joe Biden's not going to win it. In my opinion, it's going to go to the Republicans no matter who I vote for. So I'm going to vote for Cornel West in the general election, despite acknowledging, and I think it is important for us lefties to acknowledge that, yes, Joe Biden is the lesser of 2 evils, and I would much rather him be president again than Donald Trump be president again. I think it's a huge red flag of a faux populist when you start hearing people like Jimmy Dore making the argument that actually Trump is the lesser of 2 evils, and he's
that is literally
less of a fascist.
Just to be clear, that is of all the things he said, that is by far and away the dumbest shit I've ever heard him say.
Yes.
And for Sam Cedar to chime in and say, I'll debate him, I was watching that like, if he doesn't want to do it, I'll do it. I'll do it. Because that shit is, are you, like, do you have any brain cells left to make that argument? Like, that's the thing I don't like. He's a narrative humper, and he's a terminal contrarian. So he has his narrative, which is like, actually, Democrats are the bigger evil. And it's like, if you follow the news at all in modern day, you would know for sure that it's factually false. Or you do know that, and you're lying because you're a narrative humper, and you're sticking to your narrative no matter what. So anyway, sorry, I interjected there to show how pissed off I was over that.
And by the way, I think it's okay to reject the lesser of two evilism idea or that dynamic. If you say, okay, well, obviously Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils,
Correct,
but
yes,
I don't want to
exactly.
participate, and
That's
I'm going to
exactly
cast a
right.
protest vote, that's fine. But
What people don't understand is that everyone is a lesser evil. I don't know, like, this is settled science, man. Everyone is a lesser evil. That's all of life is a lesser evil. Like, that's the whole, like, people are like, oh, well, I don't want to participate in voting for any evil. There's always an evil. It's like, what you're essentially saying is, I'm going to cross my arms and not participate until the perfect thing arises for me. I don't want to put any work in. I don't want to put in any effort. I just want the perfect thing to show up. You know, that's not how it works. And it's never going to work that way. It's not going to work that way in a socialist government. It's not going to work that way in a communist society. It's never going to work that way. It doesn't work that way. People just want to make everything an expression of their own personal moral virtue. It's a symptom of, like, the narcissistic political engagement of the times, you know, where people think of their political identity as just that, an identity, and not a reflection of something greater. So they'll think like, oh, well, okay, maybe I'll acknowledge it's better for Joe Biden to win than for Trump to win, but, like, that doesn't really speak to me. That's not me. I'm not a Biden voter. That's not who I am. That's not that's not what represents me, you know? I'm a Cornell West voter. Well, I don't give a shit what you are. I give a shit what the outcome of these elections are. And you're not going to get good outcomes if you throw your votes away. Even in states that are already decidedly red. It's just, there's no point. Third parties are just not a thing. They're not real. They're fake. Don't listen to them.
don't pretend that Trump is the lesser of two evils. That's ridiculous. So yeah, I do live in a safe state, and I would actually take it further than you, Kyle. You said if someone lives in a safe state, then you think it's totally fine to vote for a third party or Green Party candidate. I would actually go further than that. I would say if you live in a solidly red or solidly blue state, and there's a Green Party candidate as good as Cornel West on the ballot, then you almost have no excuse not to vote for
Right, yeah.
that candidate, right? Because if you're living in Missouri or California on the flip side of that, then your vote is meaninless, honestly. And let's be honest about
See,
the
no,
president.
it's not. What if you believe that? Okay, if Republicans believed this, then Florida would have never become a red state. Like, it's like defeatism politics here, you know? It sure is a damn shame that the right keeps getting all these big gains by ignoring the philosophy that we use, which gets us nothing ever. You know, let's just give up. No, how do you think you're going to build infrastructure for political activism on an electoral level in these states if you're doing so through, like, this skewed mishmash of third-party candidates? We need the DNC to be working well in Florida. We need the DNC to be working well in Missouri. And you're not going to get Missouri to flip from red into, like, a Cornel West Green Party deal, okay? You're going to get, you need to build the infrastructure. Like, the right does this. When the right wants to build power in a state, they don't just fling a bunch of shit into it. They build advocacy within that state. Like, look what happened to Florida. And if they want the Republicans to be more or less radical in any given issue, they participate within the systems that get them power. They don't just, like, sit there waiting. Well, you just said voting Green parties is useless. How would this be different from voting in a safe state? What do you mean? There need to be as many people as possible voting for a repudiation of fascism. It's not enough that fascists lose. They have to be defeated.
Presidential election, unless you live in like one of 6 or 7 states, the vote you cast for president is one of the most meaningless things you're ever going to do. Because of the Electoral College, it doesn't matter.
Notice how Republicans never say this. Ever. Even Nazis, even super far-right people who know that the Republican Party doesn't represent the fullest extent of their interests, they never say this because it's stupid, because it doesn't work. It's anti-politics. They never say it. They don't.
Honestly, unless you live in Georgia, right? At this point. So I think that's something that needs to be said. And I wish that more people would understand how meaningless their vote for president is, because if more people employed my logic of, well, if I live in a state that's definitely going to go red or definitely going to go blue, so therefore I might as well just vote for the Green Party. I think if more people realize that, then the Green Party by now would have reached that 5% threshold.
If more people applied that logic, then those states wouldn't be safe blue. Then the red would have won. It's not a parliamentary system. The Greens and the Dems don't form like a coalition percentage on who wins in any given district. What do you think? If more people follow that logic, Republicans would win every time. That wouldn't be good. This just doesn't work. Just stop, please. Stop treating politics like an expression of your own personal character. It doesn't matter and nobody cares. Please stop. I'm a Cornel West voter. Great. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Nobody cares. It's not good. Stop. Please. Please.
that is necessary to get federal funding. And that's another reason why I'm very committed to getting Cornel West to 5%. I think that, yes, ranked choice voting is massively, massively important and that we do need to work on.
I hope Cornel West never, ever, I know he won't. There's a 0% chance of it happening. However, if he did get 5%, I still think that'd be bad because he's a crank, and I don't want him out there on the debate stage making leftists look bad. Sorry, buddy, if we're going to listen, okay, Bernie Sanders was an actual good leftist candidate who knew how to speak to people. Have you seen the way Cornel West talks about shit? Oh my God, absolutely not. I don't care if he's been like a historical activist. That doesn't make you a good politician.
Making that a reality before, third-party candidates can truly flourish. But I think almost equally important is getting the Green Party to 5% in a national election.
Okay, dude, Cornel West actually amazing. Bro, he signed up with the People's Party and then switched to the Green Party 2 weeks later. He's cooked. Okay? He's better. Yeah, he can do his activist shit. He's not cut out for being a politician.
That way they can get federal funding and matching funds. That'll make them a much more formidable force in the next general election. And also, I think that there is definitely a lot to be said about ranked choice voting. Zach and I are huge advocates of it. And I think it's hugely important for the third party movement. But if you do look at some previous examples of third party victories, one that Zach and I have studied is Jesse Ventura's election as a third party governor in Minnesota. It actually was him getting on the debate stage that really made a difference in that. He was far, far behind in the polls, losing to the Republican Norm Coleman and the Democrat Skip Humphrey, who are much more established politicians in the state of Minnesota. He was like far behind them, basically just considered like a joke candidate until there was debates. And then Jesse Ventura, through his ability to contrast his populist perspective with the corporate Democrat and the corporate Republican, it immediately changed, basically overnight after that debate. Now, obviously, not everyone is as talented and charismatic as Jesse Ventura, but I would argue that Cornel West comes pretty close. And if we could get a Ross Perot kind of situation where he is able to,
I don't know much about the specifics of Jesse Ventura, so I can't really like compare or contrast here. Yeah, I don't know. Also, keep in mind we're talking about like a gubernatorial election in one state versus shifting entire percentage points away from the Democrats when entire percentage points could be massive swings in who wins the presidency. Ventura's a conspiracy nut? Yeah, but I remember him being pretty captivating as a speaker.
10, 15% in a general election poll and get on the debate stage, I think that would be huge. I mean, I think that would be a earthquake. Like, people would immediately wake up and realize this is okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me interject because Ross Perot is actually the example I was going to bring up, which is the example of the most successful independent run for president at the national level. And he got, I believe the number was, I'm actually trying to look it up right now, but I think the number was
18%.
Yeah, I thought it was 19. Okay, 18% of the vote.
It's like 18 and change, but it's not quite 19.
But he got 0 electoral college votes. And also, it's widely agreed upon among historians that he's like the main reason why Bill Clinton
won.
Was able to win, right? So in a weird way, that sort of makes the resistance liberal argument where it's like, okay, so do you want to hand it over to Trump by giving a significant...
Yeah, Ross Perot is a great example because the Republican Party was furious with Ross Perot because he was the reason. Like, yeah, like that's how it works. It's the spoiler. This is how it works. Third parties pull votes away from the larger party they're most similar to. We don't have a parliamentary system. We don't have one. Our voting system is purely presidential first past the post. There is no room for a third party. It's just not a thing.
Significant chunk of the vote to a third party candidate who's not going to win and just sort of split the vote of anybody who's center or left of center and just hand all the right-wing votes over to one person, because obviously Cornel West is on the left, so he's going to take more, in theory, from, a Democratic candidate. So, look, my point is this. I think we should, if you get rid of first-past-the-post voting and you do ranked choice voting and you get it tomorrow, I would literally be like a Green Party cheerleader. I would become like an evangelist for them. Because then, then you are by definition...
I still wouldn't because I hate the Green Party.
Definition, you're serious. Because even whether or not people believe in the idea of a spoiler or they don't, it almost doesn't matter. Because it's all about the perception of people that there is a spoiler effect, right? And that's real, that people have a perception of it, even if it's true or not. And so, but if you do ranked choice voting and get rid of first-past-the-post voting, then you immediately get rid of any objection to having an independent candidate or a third-party candidate. And then I genuinely think overnight, the Green Party becomes more viable. The Libertarian Party becomes more viable. You could come up with some new party. You could run as an independent, and that would become more viable. So I guess
Why do you hate the Green Party? They seem okay. Because the Green Party does the exact same thing that every other internet lefty does, okay? They take for granted the assumption that they're ideologically distinct from the right, so they spend all their time distinguishing themselves from the Democrats. And as a consequence of that, the Green Party is full of cranks, people with no political experience or knowledge, people whose sole, like, defining trait is that they're not Democrats. And altogether, like, there's no cohesion or, like, broader strategy for representing a given set of ideologies. It's a grab bag of ideologies that are all, like, thrown in there together under the general label of not the Democrats, but ostensibly left-leaning. Even though a lot of them have these, like, weird new age, like, conspiratorial beliefs that end up aligning them more closely with far-right populists. I don't like the Green Party. I don't. Yeah, I think there would be more viability to even talking about the Green Party if we had a not first past the post system. Is there any lefty party you like in the US? No, there are no third parties. They're fake. They don't exist. There are two parties in America, okay? The Democrats and the Republicans. That's it. That's all that exists.
Frustration is, like, in this discussion, everybody always puts the cart before the horse. And I autistically am like, why are you putting the cart before the horse? Like, do it the other way. And then, like, I'm there with you, but when you don't do it, it makes me feel like it's sort of delusional in a sense.
Well, can I take a crack at that one, Kyle?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that what it is, and this would be my pushback, right? Is just that, and maybe you have a different experience. I wonder if it's a little bit, if more people are plugged in the DC area. But I feel like the reason that a lot of people put so much pressure on the the 4-year cycle. I mean,
the Ross Perot letting Clinton win thing has been debunked. He took away equally from both parties. I've heard people say that. I've heard people shift on that. The underlying fact, which is that voting for a third-party candidate pulls votes away from more ideologically similar candidates, remains the case. It's a mathematical fact. Even if he even if somehow he pulled like the exact same number of voters away from both Bush and from Clinton, which I really, really, really doubt, that doesn't change the underlying logic, which is like, okay, so what if he pulled like 60-40 towards Democrats, right? Like that's just what happens, you know? If you pull candidates away or voters away from candidates that are ideologically similar, you hamper your own chances of winning. That's first past the post. Do you think we'll ever get viable third parties? We could pass laws to change how these things work. Vosh, the Working Families Party in New York, too. New York's local electoral system isn't first past the post. In New York, when they do their local elections, they have that thing where you can vote for the other guys. But they have a system that allows, the coalition, it's not first past the post the way we have it. Because states can run their own elections based on their own rules. Ranked choice? Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Of presidency is it's because that's when you get people's eye on the ball, you know, and I do understand that you're playing with fire when you're dealing with a third party candidate and you're facing a guy like Donald Trump. But I think that the worry is that it would be infinitely more difficult because of how stressed out everybody is, because of how spread thin everybody is, and because the media machine already trains everybody and is incentivized to keep their eyes on the horse race, because that's a profitable mechanism. I think a lot of people just feel like it can be harnessed to get a third party off of the ground in a way that it might not be able to be harnessed to get something like ranked choice voting off the ground. And I think that...
Oh, yeah, there we go. That's a perfect comparison. Ralph Nader got 97,000 votes in Florida, the state where George Bush beat out Al Gore by 500 votes. So it's essentially guaranteed that Ralph Nader caused... George W. Bush to win the election, which means that George W. Bush got to be president during 9/11 and the invasion of Afghanistan and the invasion of Iraq, thereby single-handedly setting forward all of the following events that would cause America to be the way that it is. Nader did 9/11, essentially. Is it also the Supreme Court thing? Well, the Supreme Court thing wouldn't have been an issue if Nader hadn't been running, because they wouldn't have gotten that close with the recount. Yeah. So, like, I'm okay with third parties as long as they're right-leaning. That's my argument, okay? I'm fine with third parties as long as they take votes away from fascists, all right? In no other circumstances am I okay with it.
As a YouTuber, obviously we're completely jaded, right? But if you look at our, like Gavin one time, he spent 12 hours in his room cutting this super in-depth video essay about why ranked choice voting in Maine was super important and everybody should take a look.
That's gotta suck for Nader though, right? Because Nader's not like a horrible guy. He has to understand that his participation not purposefully, but still led to Bush winning, which led to Bush being the president through Iraq, Afghanistan, and 9/11, which led to the entire global culture shifting as America got pulled into xenophobia and Islamophobia as primary doctrines of like you know, like national defense. Yeah. Nah, he just blames Dems. Dog, I'm not gonna lie, okay? If I was Nader, I would deny that shit to my grave. Like, oh man, my participation indirectly set off the like current dark era of like global politics. No, what? No, no, Dems did. Wait, what? No, I didn't do that. What? I would deny that shit forever. I'm not admitting that. Fuck that, dude. No way. Yeah, he's living on copium day to day. Whew.
Look at it, because this was like 2020. It was a hot button
Do
issue.
you think if Bush didn't get elected, the right would be different? If Gore was president during 9/11, it is impossible to describe how different the world would be right now. It is literally not possible. It would be this is one of those canon events, okay? If Gore was president in 2001, the degree to it's not like that was the shift into the dark timeline. It's impossible to describe how much things have changed because of that pivot point. Whenever people tell you it doesn't matter who's president because they're both corporate, whatever, the Dems and the Republicans were not that different back in 2000. Sure, they were different, but nothing like they are today. And even back then, that difference between Gore and Bush, immeasurable.
And it got like 86 views. You know, you start making clips about, you know, the horse race, electoral politics, you get a lot more engagement. So I just think that's why people, you know, decide to put the cart before the horse, is because otherwise, you know, that horse might not move.
I also
So
just think people
would
are
just
sick and
say
tired of waiting. But sorry,
that's
go
more
ahead.
of a. I mean, I hear you, but that's more like the point that I'm making to do those things. It's more of like a procedural and administrative type argument. Not that it needs to be this big public show. We're going to get ranked choice voting and we're going to get rid of first past the post voting. It's more of like, and this is where like knowing how to play politics really works. If you get people who are experts at this stuff and basically insider lobbyists at this stuff, and you can get them to talk to the right people, give the right campaign contribution. It's sort of like how with Wolfpack and you know, Jank, and he started the whole thing, let's get money out of politics or whatever, and they're trying to get a constitutional convention, and they certainly hit a brick wall, but they got like, I don't know how many states it was, I'm just guessing, like 10 or 12 states or something like that, to actually pass at the state level a call for a constitutional convention to get money out of politics. Now, why was that the case? Because they were able to, like, they hired people who knew what they were doing, they knew what strings to pull, they knew who to talk to, and I
Sorry, it was louder than I thought it would be, okay?
think that, and because to do ranked choice voting and getting rid of first past voting, you could do it on a state-by-state basis, and so I think, like, you actually can get that done. And by the way, Andrew Yang, for my many flaws, for the many flaws he has, my many disagreements with him, when he started his forward party or whatever, one of their main things was like, we want to get ranked choice voting everywhere. And like my counter argument to him was like, you should make that like your only thing. Like this should be a single issue attempt, and not even necessarily a political party. But like, I guess my point is I don't think it's possible until you get rid of first past the post voting and you get ranked choice voting. So I just wish people were a little more serious about the steps to get this stuff accomplished. And I don't really see that happening. But I will say, I do sort of co-sign the idea that, you know, in safe states in particular, it is a good, like, I think you should sort of cast the moral vote and the virtuous vote. I sort of agree with Gavin on that point. I just don't want to give.
Man, Kyle's really falling. Wait, how is Kyle fall? Wait, this is Kyle getting closer to my positions than he was before. How is he falling off at all? How, on any level, how is this falling off? I'm not saying I agree with everything Kyle says or whatever, but Kyle has so much integrity. That's the thing, like, dude, in all the people that I've interacted with since starting my channel, my impression of like 98% of the people that I've interacted with in our space, who ostensibly agree with us, by the way, who are ostensibly leftists, and most of them are grifting, emotionally unstable pieces of shit who treat this at best like lunch table politics and worse like a job with no moral investment whatsoever. And through all of that, as much as I've disagreed with him, Kyle has always been like super cool and principled whenever I've talked to him. Which just such a huge difference from like other people I've engaged with.
People false hope about it in the sense that I'm like, hey, with you doing this, it's going to like usher in the revolution, because it's not. It's like until we get rid of those structural things in the way, I kind of view it, is my final point, then I'll let you guys talk. I kind of view it as self-disenfranchisement, right? Like Cornel West is running in the Green Party, or it was the People's Party, and thankfully he listened to his critics and went to the Green Party. That was a good move.
Yeah, free.
But like he would be polling way higher if he ran as a Democrat. And I think everybody knows that, right? Like when Jill Stein ran, what she actually had
seriously, man, dude, if Cornel West ran as a Democrat, that'd be so much cooler. Might actually have a chance at like getting in with the primary stuff as well.
good run compared to other third party runs. And one time she got what, like 3% or something like that,
Yeah.
which again is good for a Green Party candidate. Whereas Bernie Sanders got like 45% of the vote, and he's basically like a Green Party candidate who's running from within the Democratic Party. You know what I'm saying? So however rigged people think it is by the DNC against progressives, and by the way, there are a lot of structural hurdles there, and they do try to put their thumb on the scale, and they do influence it in a negative direction. But however rigged that is, it's like 10 times more rigged the third party way, and that's why I get frustrated. And honestly, I blame myself a little bit because I was, I view politics in a very like principled morality, what's the right way to do it kind of way. And I sort of let that cloud my logical judgment in terms of how to actually win and actually get W's on the board. And so I sort of fed into this hysteria of like the third party stuff. And you have these people who have become totally nihilistic, and they'd rather like, you hear people say like, I don't want to do, like doing nothing is actually morally superior. And it's like, no, that's not accurate. Yeah.
The accelerationists and all that stuff. 100%. And to be honest, you talk about the false hope that the Green Party represents. Yes, are there a couple like terminally online people that think that like voting for Cornel West 2024 is going to usher in the revolution and be the end of the duopoly? Like, yeah, I'm sure there's a couple of those people out there. I think, however, that the vast majority of people that vote Green in any election, myself included, do recognize it at this point to be a protest vote, with like the most hope being getting that candidate to 5%. I think that most people do recognize that. And I don't say protest vote to like demean the idea of third-party voting, because I also have only ever voted for Green Party candidates. I've only been eligible to vote in 2 presidential elections, 20.
God damn it. Okay, I get the point. Big dubs for Kyle. Big dubs for Kyle. Why can't we all just vote blue all the time? Just keep it nice and simple so we don't have to argue about it every election season. And we'll move on, do other stuff. Focus on other issues.